So what we're gonna do is we're gonna thank our sponsors real quick, Kyle, and then from there we have a bunch of great questions from the audience that we're gonna dive in, and then we make sure that we get those answered. But of course, the show would be possible. We're 109 episodes deep. Over 2 years. We want to thank Job Nimbus, the CRM that Randy built Elite Roofing on. Everything for your business in one place, so you can track your leads, jobs, and tasks. From one easy to use software. So, Job Nimbus users are seeing a 43% average revenue growth, 8 hours a week saved per person, and 25% more payments collected. So if you want to check them out, check out jobnimbus.com. And our next sponsor is One Click Code. Kyle, do you know anything about One Click Code or Garrett Kurt?
I do know both of them, and full disclosure, Garrett came to me. It was a couple years back, and kind of we met for lunch and talked about his one-click code. And I'll be honest with you, my initial response was, well, Garrett, I don't need this. I get all this code information myself, right? So, and we talked some more about it, and he was obviously dedicated to making it go. And so well, good luck to you. I think that's fantastic, right? But I don't really need your program. This is I've got Dropbox pages full of code documents. Whatever I need, I can get it and send it. I'm never going to use your stuff. When he did get it up and running, I completely flipped. It's such a great package the way he's put it together. It's so presentable. And then I started to think about what he's really doing here is he's building a brand that's not only very beneficial to the contractor because it makes it easy. You can get put the address, all the codes, it's right there. He's also working on the insurers to get them to accept it as well. So it becomes something we can all rely on. And as he continues to grow this, he can research and find out about codes and make sure they're published and printed, and then we can use those without having to do what I did, without having to collect all these documents, without having a document file that's ridiculous, and then having to highlight the areas you need. It can all be there, and he's put it together, and he's also offers the material. Now you can get put in whatever material you're using, and it clicks back what what the manufacturer requirements are, because that's all code. So my hat's off to Garrett Kurt and One Click Code. He has done a bang up job with that thing, and I absolutely use it every week on stuff because it's just so easy. It's just too easy.
Rick Lemon says, I love One Click. I don't know if I told you before, but he gave you a shout out too, saying that it was nice to see you on the show. Good to see your mug, Kyle. Those are the exact words that he used. So we got some good questions here, though. So let's see what we got. Brooks always got some good questions here. Let's see if I can pull this up, actually. How do you, no, here it might, hold on, not to hide it, looks like. How do you keep your cool when adjusters deny reasonable and legitimate line items and give the line cost of doing business, then deny GCOP? Supplements are getting more difficult with all documentation you must add to your Xactimate estimates. Worse since COVID.
A lot to unpack there. So first of all, how do I keep my cool when some of that's, look, I used to be, back in the early 2000s, I was that guy. I was, an arrogant asshole to adjusters oftentimes and telling them you're just an idiot, blah, 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 whatever. It didn't work. I mean, it doesn't, again, they have, it's kind of like the police or inspectors. For contractors, everybody, you should know that you just don't argue with a city inspector because they have all the power. They're right. No matter what, they're right. Just do what they tell you to correct something, you just correct it, because it's a hell of a lot easier to get in a fight with an inspector. It's similar with adjusters. Remember, this is the insurance company, and they're the ones writing the checks. They're the one paying the bills for all of this. So love them or hate them, it's they write the checks that the money's the insurers, the homeowners, that's where all the money comes from, but unfortunately they don't have any control over it once it goes to the insurance company. It ends up in their hand to distribute. So keeping that in mind, that you want this guy to help you, whether he's an asshole or not. It's not going to help you to be an ass back to him. It never does. I mean, there is times, I will say, I've been doing, I don't know how many tens of thousands of insurance claims I've dealt with at this point. So there is times when adjusters are just over the top, and I will try to try to knock them out at the knees, but not in a way that is. I try to do it in a passive aggressive way. You know, that's the much more effective. I try to make them feel stupid if I can. Uh, so so you just can't let it get to you. It's not personal. It's just, you know, this is just what they do. They've got bosses too that are telling them this is what we're going to do. This is what you must do. And so then those people write their checks. So they don't give a crap what you think of them, because you're not giving them anything except, you know, grief. So
Mm-hmm.
it's if you've got one on there, you just can't see you can't see reason, and you know, well, like for State Farm, you can call back another day, or ask to speak to a supervisor potentially. Though that used to work a lot better, it doesn't work so well anymore. It used to be a really great tool. But mostly keep your cool with them as well. Document your stuff. If you've got, you know, go back and get the facts. If he's saying he can't pay for something for some whatever reason because it's supposed to be included in the cost, well, then show him how it's not included in your cost. That's a great way. If he's saying this is the cost of doing business, say, well, it's really not, because it's not, you know, here's my cost of doing business. So you don't see anywhere in here where I have this particular cost you're saying is the cost of doing it. Do you see it in my cost, Mr. Adjuster? Do you see it anywhere in my, you know, in my P&L here? It doesn't exist. So it's not a cost of doing business.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of stuff. Take what they're saying and try to flip it back on them. They'll always, in one form or another, they will generally tell you what it takes to what or why they can't pay it. And if you can overcome that objection, just like when you're out there talking to the customer and, you know, that's saying, you're the 75th roofer that knocked on my door this week. If one more you guys show up, I'm going to get my, you know, my double barrel shotgun out and I'm going to have roofer target practice. But you want to be that guy that gets him to change his mind. So it's the same thing. You've got to, you know, put on your clever hat and try to figure out, how can I get this guy to come to my way of thinking. Not that it's always going to work. I mean, there's a appraisal process. You can, in Colorado, you can litigate if you need to. We can take it up and sue them if we have to. So that, as far as how to deal with difficult adjusters, that's just show them where they're wrong without coming off too aggressive. You know, write him back an email, explain what he said to you, and then point out the errors in his thinking and why it doesn't work. That's why I said about being prepared, knowing your costs, knowing all your stuff. The more you know about your craft, the better prepared you are. The better prepared you're for when adjusters come in with that kind of stuff. Yeah, he mentioned O&P too. GCO&P is a red herring. It's a trap. It's a trap for several different reasons. One, because technically GCO&P, and I think this is what's going to happen, what's going to come to eventually, is you know, it's supposed to be 10 and 10 on top of your cost. Whatever your costs are, your general contractor, you're supposed to get paid 10 and 10. That's why, you know, contractors want the 10 and 10, because it adds to the base model of 32% gross margin. Xactimate, it turns it into 48% gross margin, which is about what they need to survive. So for contractors, GCO&P is merely a tool to get them the fair and reasonable margin they need. For insurance companies, it's a whole nother thing. So getting stuck in that GCO&P trap, to me, is a mistake, because you end up arguing and talking about GCO&P, which is there's no definition of what complexity and coordination is. It doesn't, you know, back in the day, there was a time when if we had 3 trades on anything, and we turned roofing, gutters, and anything else. You know, if we had to paint the pipe jacks, oh, well, that was a 3rd trade. That was painting. So and we used to get a bot. We used to get O&P based on that kind of stuff. Of course, you know, that spread like wildfire, and pretty soon you started seeing insurers come back with, well, no, it's not based on amount of trades or any of that. It's based on complexity and coordination, which makes no sense, because that's not even Xactimate doesn't define complexity and coordination at all. They say GCO&P is based on all the costs that aren't included in their line items, like your rent and your trucks and your insurance, and, you know, whoever you got answering the phones, and you got a service tax. That's what GCO&P is really supposed to pay, which all these guys do incur. It's just, again, the insurers, because they've changed the narrative on that. I rarely write estimates with GCOMP anymore, and unless it's a really complicated claim, like if we have a roof and there was well, I mean, if you have roof, windows, gutters, siding, maybe some interior work, and who knows what else, right? Then if it gets complex enough on commercial claims, we get complex enough, we'll add GCOMP. But I try to write estimates that are based on costs that include the contractor's what he needs margin wise. That's how I write estimates. I vet the contractor, find out what his costs are, find out what he needs to run a sustainable company, and then I reverse engineer that back into Xactimate and come out with a number that doesn't include O&P, but it does. Does that make sense? I mean, it's because it's not about for contractors. It's not about it's they want the O&P just because it adds gets them to the margin they need to be. It's not about all the things insurance companies talk about. If and I've used this example with insurers a lot. If some big general contractor that builds 50-story high rises did Mrs. Smith's shed, their costs for that day are no less. They're going to need they need the same gross revenue on that little shed as they do any other day. It doesn't change, and it's changed for obviously one of these contractors. You don't get to tell your people today, well, today State Farm's not giving us GCOMP, so you know what, you need to stay home, because you wouldn't have employees very long if that was the case. But we're never going to win that argument, so I've decided just to get away from it, just to stay away from O&P and build it into the cost and the unit price of the Xactimate estimate, which is pretty much what Xactimate says to do anyway. That's their user agreement categorically states that none of their users are supposed to completely forbid or not accept adjustments to the unit pricing as needed per contractor, per claim, per whatever the conditions of the job might be. But they don't, but this is Xactimate, and they want to stay in the neutral ground as much as possible. And then they're certainly not going to hold insurers' feet to the fire, because the insurers on some level, well, they don't own them, but they work collusively together for sure. So my advice again is to use whatever the insurers are putting out there, whatever they're trying to sell you, and then take it, figure out how to manipulate it, and flip it back at them so that it works out in your favor. That's the best advice I can give there. I've been doing it a long time, so it's easier for me, but I have a personality for it as well. Some guys don't. That's another question you got to ask yourself. If you're not the kind of guy that can take an adjuster being a complete idiot and refusing line items that are just as obvious to a 3-year-old that they should be on, then you probably shouldn't be the guy that's talking to the insurance company, because they're never going to change. They are huge. And if they wanted to, they've been at this a lot longer than any of us have been alive. They could have taken this process and made it a much more streamlined, much easier, much more efficient, and not had any of this crap go on. But for some reason they haven't. So they're about making money. So that this works out for them, and that's why there's no incentive for them to change and try to get qualified people that are actually going to write the right, put the right numbers in there to begin with, because it doesn't really pay off for them. This is much better for them. So knowing all those things, you've got to accept that going in, that this is kind of the field that we're playing on. It's a home field for the insurance companies. They pay all the umpires, all the fans are theirs. So we are at a complete disadvantage. We're walking in, we're down 50 points before we even get on the field.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. Well, so we have another question, Kyle, too. So I want to make sure we can answer as many as we can. So if we don't get to you, maybe we can go through it another time here. But we got Jose Herrera with New Era Roofing out here in Denver. He says, "Do you?"
Hey, Jose.
Oh yeah, he's at the Roofing Academy Mastermind too. Do you pre-supplement before the job is in production and post-supplement, or only post?
Well, I do both. I mean, but in the perfect world, you'd pre-supplement everything, and then you'd get it settled before you ever got started, because then you're not having to carry the insurance company at all. If you can, you're not waiting to, at least when you get the job done, you can send an invoice to be done. Unfortunately, that doesn't oftentimes it doesn't work out because you got customers that aren't going to wait for the insurance company to come around, and they want to get their job done. And if you're not going to do it, then Jack's Roofing right next door will come here and do it tomorrow. They told me they would, so I can't. So if you don't get on it at times, you don't have time or luxury to wait for the insurance company to get things resolved. So like I said, in a perfect world, we'd pre-supplement everything. You'd never jump on a job until you knew what you were going to get paid 100%. And there's some pressure, particularly on the insurance side, to, if you want to do appraisal, there's certain insurers that are no longer willing to go to appraisal after the job's completed. So that's a problem that you have to consider whenever you're jumping into something. If you're thinking you might need an appraisal, you want to get that all worked out before you ever even start on the job. So this is a question that you've got to ask yourself, your company. Where do we sit? Where are our customers? What's the environment we're in? In a big storm environment where we just got hit with $2 billion worth of hail damage, there's nobody. You could wait or not wait. You're still going to get plenty of work. But I guarantee if you wait, ask your customers to wait, you're going to lose a percentage of those to somebody else who's going to tell them they can do it today. So there's no, like most things in this, there's no hard and fast rule of what makes the most sense. You've got to look at the environment, look at what you're in, know your customer. Some customers you can tell them, hey, you got to wait for a while. As with customers, if you're wanting to wait, one of the best leverage tools you'd ever have is make sure you get that deductible or get something deposit from them prior, and then you can ask them and set the expectations with them as well. Tell them, look, I want to do this great job for you. I'm going to do everything right. So I want to negotiate with the insurance, get this settled with the insurance company before I really jump on this. And you want me to get paid correctly too, don't you, Mr. Jones? You don't want me to come in here and just take a bath, right? That's why you're hiring me. So, and if you set that expectation, potentially you might find a bunch of customers that they'll kind of hold their breath and wait for you to get things taken care of and resolved.
Mm-hmm. So let's try to get here. Maybe we'll get one more question and we'll kind of start to close out here. Let's see here. We got Brooke again. Brooke's always got some good questions, so we might as well go with it. What about the waste ridge starter argument? I've been using a waste calculator, but it adds time. Any other option in regards to that?
Well, first thing I say is State Farm is now is paying for ridge. So since State Farm's 52% of the market, it's awesome. But I've always, because they've been saying that for a long time, that there's ridge cap included in the waste factor of the shingles, that you don't need ridge on top of the waste. Which, as I've said here, this goes straight to my theory. Okay, I understand you're saying the ridge cap's included. So here's my invoice that I paid for this material. Here's my 21 squares of shingles, field shingles. Here's my 3 bundles of starters. So that's another square. That gives me 22. And here's my 6 bundles of ridge, which is 2 squares. So that gets me to 24 squares. Mr. Adjuster, you said it's included, but you're only paid for 22.33 squares. I'm no genius, but 22.33 does not equal 24. So either up the waste, because you say it's included, or give me ridge cap. That's been the argument I've used successfully for a decade. That works really, really well. Because in the end, ridge cap in Xactimate pays something like $4.50 a square foot compared to most shingles, which are only maybe $250, $300, whatever. So you get paid a lot better for ridge cap. So even if they just want to give me the ridge cap and don't give me the starter, because it kind of works it works out in the wash. I get the money. If they want to add 2.5 squares of waste to the shingle price, that's fine too. It works out either way. That's generally where it is. So that's number one thing to do about that. Just give them your material invoice and highlight and point out where exactly how much material you did purchase, and then throw that at them. And I guarantee I can't even think of a time where they didn't say, okay, we get it.
So, Kyle, as we kind of bring this thing to a close, my friend, as always great conversation with you. Tons of experience and information to share that can help a lot of people out there. So we kind of, we talk about a gold nugget that I want you to kind of take. Anything that you want to share and preach out to our viewers out there, all those roofing contractors out there, that you want to say, please do this, or here's advice I want you to use. But before I do that, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
I'm available by phone for sure, so you can call me anytime, 720-309-7191, or I can be reached at Furtado Law Solutions, Kyle at Furtado Law Solutions, or I can also be reached at Kyle at myroofingexpert.com.
Cool. And I just want to make sure, because I'm writing the phone number in the comments too. 720-309 and then 7191.
Yes.
Perfect. Got it in the comments there too. So what are you leaving? You got all this experience, you've done all these crazy things in the space to help out contractors out there. What are you going to preach to the viewers?
Well, I think that the future, our industry is going to a place where insurers are going to understand cost. They're going to know what the costs are. They're going to know what your costs are, even if you won't tell them. SRS Distribution is now offering, not only do they offer material, but they'll give you, through Labor Connect, they'll give you a crew and what the cost of labor is for whatever job you might be doing. Well, that's so it's public information, more or less, at that point. An insurance company could sign up for their system and get that information as well. So the biggest nugget that I think all of us need to focus on is that is what's going to happen. So they're going to know our cost, and if we allow the insurers to know our cost and just add on the O&P, and that becomes the market, which is what MRP programs and stuff will do, then we're all out of business. It doesn't matter anymore. So this is self-serving as well as serving for the contractors. I think you've got to start to pound on the insurers about what you need, what you really need to run a sustainable company, so we can get that narrative. We can get them completely, as much as we can, off of 10 and 10 is enough. It's not enough. It's not enough for anybody. And they need to understand that you need a 35 or 40 or 45 or whatever the hell you need. They need to know that, and they need to hear it from you, whether if it's just just getting that in their ear, just get it in their ear, and maybe then go back to negotiating the Xactimate, as it was. Let them know that stuff, so they have to hear it. This is I've been at this a long time, and nothing happens fast with insurance companies. But if you're playing the long game, over time, just like Hip and Ridge with State Farm, contractors have been bitching at them for 10 years about this, and they've just switched. That's the way it is. It's you don't think you're having an impact, but I've talked to thousands and thousands of adjusters, and I've said some of the same stuff, and I'm sure that little nugget of whatever I've said, and said it over and over again, they've heard it from me, and they tell me that. I don't need to hear that again, Kyle. That kind of stuff, it spreads. And in these days with social network and everything else, with all the stuff that the contract, if I come up with something today, back in the day, I'd come up with something that was new and effective, and I had to call my buddies, whoever the contractors I knew, and say, "Hey, try doing this, and this worked for me with State Farm or something else." These days, I could find something out today, post it on one of the I could post it on the Roofing Academy or something. I could post it somewhere, and before you know it, by the next day, everybody in the whole country is aware of it. So having those kind of discussions, and putting that information out there, and letting everybody know, letting not only your brethren know, but the insurance companies know, we have to have, if we're going to have sustainable, we're all going to be here, we got to get that message out there that the margins that we need are this, and not what the insurance company needs. Otherwise, it's going to end up being a whole bunch of gigantic MRP contractors, and none of us are going to exist anymore. And so that's kind of a dystopian look at it, but I really think it's the truth of where it's going. And I understand insurers, they are just like you. Granted, they're much bigger and they're a bunch of assholes, but they want to make money too. That's what they do. They want to make money. So you can't, this is strong as the strongest survive, right? So if they can figure out a way to get to where they only paying for labor and material plus 16% to whoever the MRP contractor is, that's what they're going to do, unless we somehow get that narrative changed.
Well, Kyle, always a pleasure, my friend. Always great talking to you. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, my friend, in episode 109 of the Start Build Grow Show.
Nick, it was a pleasure being with you as well, my friend, and all the folks that are watching.
Randy, we missed you. See you
I hope
later,
you
guys.
didn't crash.
Have a good one, guys.
Talk to you. Bye.